Misha Zelinsky is a national security expert and Fulbright scholar. He's currently in Ukraine. He's also a union official, and he joins me now from Lviv. We spoke to you last week, Misha Zelinsky. What's happened since then? I believe your life was saved with an escape to Lviv there. I think you wrote about it.
Yeah, well, getting out of Kyiv was extraordinarily difficult and has remained so for the last week. You talked about a ceasefire. Those have failed on a number of occasions over the last week. Also, what they're trying to do through these ceasefires is open up so-called green corridors, which allows for civilians to get out of heavily war zones where there's a lot of heavy fighting going on. Last night, there was a lot of heavy fighting once again in the capital of Kyiv, also in Kharkiv and other cities. So at the moment, there's a real humanitarian crisis building across the country. I spoke to representatives from the mayor's office in Mariupol, which is a city on the southeast of the country towards the Black Sea. It's relatively encircled at the moment. They're trying to get 200,000 people out of that city out of a population of 500,000. At the moment, they can't get them out because of the collapses of the peace talks. As you mentioned, the Russians have offered a so-called corridor into Russia or into Belarus, which is not exactly a safe passage if you're one of the people there being currently attacked by the Russian army. So in Mariupol, for example, they've been for over 7 days now without electricity, without water, without food, without heating, and it's absolutely freezing right now in Ukraine. So humanitarian crisis is building, Andrew. 1 million Ukrainians have already passed through into Poland, Hungary, Romania, and other countries. They're expecting another 1 million refugees to be heading right now west from the east into Lviv, where I am right now, which is 75 kilometres from the border. So it's extraordinarily difficult to get out.
Where do you think the conflict is headed? Do you think Zelinsky will have to flee Kyiv eventually?
Well, he's made it clear that he's not going anywhere. So the expectation was that the government in Kyiv would fall on the first or second day. We're well into the second week, approaching the third week of this conflict. Zelensky has rallied the country and said, I'm not leaving. In many ways, it'd be like Winston Churchill leaving London during World War II, during the raids. So he said he's not going anywhere. The government's still functioning now. I spoke to an MP from leads the party, The Voice, and she told me she's not leaving either. The only MPs that have left Kyiv are citizen soldier MPs, and they've gone to fight in the east of the country. So expectations are going to stay.
Misha, why hasn't it been easy for the Russians to get on top here? They clearly underestimated the resistance.
Well, it's a number of reasons. First is that the Russians appear to have fought poorly. They have not used their forces in a coordinated manner, but they've also underestimated the Ukrainian spirit and the Ukrainian defences. Clearly, the arming of the Ukrainians, particularly the Javelins, which is a handheld rocket launcher device, it's a tank killer. That missile goes to the roof of the tank and has been effective in shooting those tanks. And also, just generally speaking, the Ukrainians have taken arms and fought under the president's call to arm themselves. He made a call in the first 24 hours, come and get a weapon and come fight for your country. I literally was here a day ago. I saw deliveries of weapons coming into Lviv. People were lined out into the streets 10 deep waiting to get a gun, and that's happening right across the country. There's footage in Zaporozhye where people also were waiting to arm themselves. So this is happening right across the country where people are desperate to get themselves an arm and to desperately defend their nation. And it's unsurprising, Andrew. You think about it, if there's a country invading Australia, I'm sure Australians would take up arms to defend their country. So Putin has underestimated the fighting spirit of the Ukrainians, but he also thought that it'd all be over in a day. As days turn into weeks, he's under a lot of pressure. Sanctions are building now. The pressure is building on the Russian economy, and the pressure is now turning onto Putin to deliver this fast victory that has not happened thus far.
Indeed. Just very briefly, how long will you stay in the country for?
Well, I want to stay for as long as it's safe to do so. There are a lot of journalists right across the country doing some outstanding reporting. It's pretty safe here in Lviv at the moment. There's a huge humanitarian crisis building here, and it's important that international journalists are telling the story. So I'll stay for as long as it's safe, Andrew, but I'll listen to the advice.
Well, we hope we can talk to you again. Misha Zelinsky, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.